So there is quite some people coming in already. Nice. So it's 1600, so I guess we should begin.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It's Andre and myself.
Hi guys.
Andre is the awesome mind behind Drone Swarm, so he is the game designer taking care of all the mechanics, how everything interlocks and how everything evolves. My name is Julian. I'm the founder of Still Alive Studios, and today we're here to basically answer all your questions, as you already know since it's an AMA. So yeah, here you go. We're ready for the first questions to begin.
Let's scroll all the way up.
Oh, should we go through all of them?
Of course.
Of course. So Carlito asked, how is the progression of the development for the game and when can we play it? So how is the progression of the development? The progression is steady. No, we're proceeding nicely. We plan to have it in your hands 2020 still, and obviously you guys, since you're in Discord anyways, you will be notified about the playtests we're still going to conduct, and hopefully soon on that front. So you will be able to check it out earlier than the rest of the world. When can we get our hands on the PAX East demo? That's a good question since Corona got in the way. So we plan to have, this is basically our expo demo that will be improved further. And we plan to have it on, or we planned originally to have it on additional expositions. But for the playtests, you actually will get even a lot farther advanced version than the PAX demo. Since, yeah, well, we want you to check out the forefront of development there, which will be the actual game, which the demo is really very much geared to be done in like 20 minutes. And the actual game obviously is not and will feel quite different. So you will get access to that one instead. The entire swarm asks if there will be a multiplayer eventually. That is a tough question. So let's say for now, not. Though it is something I personally would like to get to in at some point, especially a co-op. PvP, on the other hand, will not make it into the game, since you kind of have to understand that fighting swarm versus swarm is an entirely different game than fighting asymmetrically like we have it in the game right now, which is swarm versus ships. That's an entire different set of abilities, an entire different set of game mechanics. So it's not like we can just throw in PvP and be done with it. And therefore, yeah, we rather focused on the asymmetry part and on the story mode first and foremost.
Guys, are you hearing the people that are in the AMA channel? Are you hearing what we're saying properly? All right, good stuff.
I hear you loud and clear. Cool. Amazing. So then there was another question. How many times do you think we can replay the game and have a totally new experience? Andre, I would say twice.
Twice, yeah, I would say.
Absolutely. Because there will be one very, very key decision in the story. Basically, who you ally to. And that will change everything, pretty much. So it's definitely twice, but there will be also several random elements to the game. There is a whole tech tree, obviously, so you can play it more often still. and discover some more nuances and different play styles and stuff like that, but entirely different, I would say, twice. Then was another question. Will there be an endless mode? So let's say we have a very, very good ideas about that. If they make it into the vanilla, it's to be seen. I doubt it at the moment. But we plan to maintain DroneSwarm long after release, and I would say there is a good chance it will make it into the game afterwards. If we purchase the game later on, do we gain access to the comic as well? Or is the comic a separate purchase, like, for example, the art book? So on this front, we're not entirely clear yet how everything will work out. So independently, definitely the comic will be available as a separate book to be purchased. We might have some, let's say, bundles or something, but details on that front, as said, are hashed out still. Is there a rough date? So Rage of Zen asked if there is a rough date for the next playtest. There is. And please don't nail me down on this, because you know how things can be fluid in development, but we aim to have one beginning of June, a very small one, and then probably a bigger one later in June. So stay tuned on that front, definitely. Will the game have a demo version? No. Will the playtest be the future demo version? No. Since instead we will have basically a version that that resembles very much what you will be experiencing in a final game, because the playtests are primarily for you to give us feedback on how things are, if are they understandable, do they feel good, so ultimately we can make a better game. And therefore it will not be like a completely scripted demo that is just polished to the end while the rest of the game is not, so you will actually play the real thing. How many languages will there be supported? So for one, we will have English as voiceover, maybe also German. I really hope so. And additionally, we have a couple of languages still. Let me count them real quick. So we plan to have French, Spanish, Italian, Polish, Russian, Turkish, Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. So quite a bunch that we will translate the game into. Are there any expansions planned to the game? Not at this point yet. I mean, as said, we will continue supporting the game and continue development after the release as well. So who knows what's there then? The aforementioned endless mode might definitely be something we will endeavor to do afterwards. But again, that highly depends on basically all you guys, what you think, where you feel the game would benefit most from. Are you planning on adding a survival mode? That's basically the endless mode, right? And any kind of streaming integration. Do you mean by streaming integration a Twitch integration or with a Twitch API? I guess, Andre, do you have an idea on that?
I don't know about the streaming integration, but the survival mode might be related to those
The endless mode.
New Game Plus, more like the one where you
Yeah.
have some resource issues that you can kind of, so you need to mind your resources more about it, and that we were thinking about. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For now, as said, again, all our efforts go into the core experience, which is the story mode with its entirely 2 different branches. And yeah, we want to make that as well as we can before we go into any other modes that distract that from this. How long do you think a regular playthrough would take?
We know that.
Sorry?
We know that, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's,
I mean,
definitely.
it's really hard to gauge, but we're planning for 8 hours ish. So again, the play tests will help us discovering what the exact number of hours is in the end. Because yeah, it's as you might imagine, it's really hard as a dev who plays the game like all the time to gauge how long somebody who didn't play it before would need for a certain encounter. But there will be roughly 120 systems in the game, and every system is basically an encounter for you to deal with, mostly some variations on fights, obviously. So there is plenty to do. Are there any difficulty levels to choose from? We are planning for that, yes. At the moment, we really nail down the normal mode, you would ask it, but we definitely want to add additional difficulty settings for players to adapt to their style of play. And if yes, will the highest only be activated for NG+? I have no idea what NG+.
New Game Plus. New Game Plus.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so you probably won't need to finish it to be able to.
Probably not, no.
Yeah.
Because for my perspective, at least from a design perspective, I feel always that a difficulty should be there to help player enjoy the game how it was meant to be enjoyed. So staying in the flow, let's say. And if you feel it's too hard, you should be able to change it, as well as if you feel underwhelmed or like basically unchallenged, then you should also be able to change that and not having it barred behind some artificial lock. Andre, maybe you want to give your
even
design
if
2 cents?
Drone Swarm being, as it is mechanics wise, it's. I mean, we can plan for absolutely everything you guys, the players, would come up with, like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're very handy with the drones, or if you're can find some super cool gimmick using the kinetic path, for example, or I don't know what, and you just steamroll through some missions that we planned otherwise, then of course you would have to ramp up the difficulty to feel something about that,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, and
That's
the
actually
opposite is also valid, right? If you
that's actually a great point that Andre is making. That's has been and is still a big challenge for us in designing Drone Swarm, because we design a sandbox, right? So we give you the tools for how you can control the drones and what you can do, but things combine, things happen on the battlefield. And it happens again and again. At PAX, it happens where I observed players doing stuff that I was like, whoa, how did that happen? Right? We have no idea. So a lot of basic tactics, obviously, we can account for. We can even push in that direction. So they definitely work, so to say. But beyond that, you can go nuts. And you should. I mean, that's the fun of it. Should we maybe jump down to a couple more recent questions? Because otherwise we're going down the list forever and the new ones might be left behind. So I'm gonna go from the bottom now.
Jason is posting our answers for the people that can't join or can't hear, which is very nice. Thank you.
Maybe
So
you guys
a wise
try...
corn. has
Right.
a very important question. He says, how are you all on this fine day? So I cannot say for others. I'm fine. Actually, very good. I was very much anticipating this armor and very curious to see who is gonna show up. So thanks for asking. I'm gonna give that a heart. Heart.
So if you guys want to show something from the game, it makes sense to turn off the webcams and stream
Yes, of course,
only with voice, so more people can come in to the room, actually.
Okay.
Oh, okay. If we turn off webcam, then people can join more. Over.
And it's just voice channel, and I
Okay, sure.
think
Then
it
let's
should
turn
be
off.
right.
Oh, there's no limit. Climb in.
Come on, 9. So then let's start the screen sharing activity.
Maybe questions related to the gameplay could be nice here.
Can you see it?
Let's notify everyone that they can join, yeah?
So were people having issues with joining? Does it work for everyone?
Well, it looks like
For
more
me,
are
it
joining,
works.
so... Yeah. Okay, can we get another check from somebody who's in here? Can you hear it right?
Can you also see it and the voice is okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yep,
cool.
as well.
Great.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Good. So glad we got that limit out of the way. So
Yeah,
welcome everyone now who didn't hear us before. We were answering quite some questions already, so keep them coming. And we have the build here, which is obviously a current work in progress build, but still some questions are better shown than actually explained, so we figured you would like that. So, what questions are still open?
Oh, there's some of them, but let's look at for some things that are gameplay related.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm going through it. Please post it as well. So, in as non-technical a way as possible, can you explain how can you get a normal computer to smoothly track so many drones simultaneously? So yeah, that's basically the question. You can actually see the drone simulation going on here. It's basically in the main menu the same as in the game as well. Just in the game there's a lot of AI stuff and other things on top. So what do we do? As you can see, every individual drone is simulated, right? So you can see every single drone behaving according to a set of rules. That's on the one hand inspired by fluid dynamics and on the other hand by flocking behavior, basically. And the cool thing is nothing of this is pre-calculated or anything. So if I add a disturbance, like with my mouse cursor now, every single drone reacts to it dynamically, right? So the question is, how can we achieve that in real time? So the tech for DroneSwarm, I would say, has evolved quite a bit since in the very beginning. In the beginning, we actually put everything on the GPU and parallelized the hell out of it. So to run on pixel shaders, ultimately. later than compute shaders, but we would use the architecture, the hardware architecture of the GPU, which is very, very fast at doing a lot of things at the same time. So like 8 cores is like a joke for a GPU. It's a lot more. So we calculated everything there, and because of that, we wrote code that is, let's say, quite simple to execute for a single drone. And we optimized that quite a bit. Later though, with the advent of possibilities in Unity, also with especially the burst compiler, things looked very positive that we could potentially put the entire swarm on the CPU. And it was, I think, a year ago pretty much when we tried and succeeded in getting it all on the CPU. Because having it on the CPU has a couple of big advantages. First and foremost is that we are not as heavy on GPUs anymore. Because before, if you didn't have a dedicated graphics card, it was really tough to simulate drone swarm. So like a laptop would be basically, yeah, you can't. But now with a somewhat decent CPU, you can get it to run. And because our code before was very much already made for parallelization and optimized to be very light on a single unit calculation, it worked very well with the burst compiler that translates it into very, very fast code then that can be executed on multiple threads. And there was another question that I saw that is basically how many threads can we scale to? Basically, that's up to the hardware. We scale up to the possible and available thread limit on the hardware. So DroneSwarm will get issues hardware-wise when your CPU has very few cores. Let's say 2 cores. I'm hesitant to say it will run smoothly, but obviously it depends on what CPU you have. But I guess if you have 4 plus and not super old CPU, you should be fine running it smoothly. That was maybe not as simple as I would have liked, but you know.
I mean, that's the non-technical as possible as required.
Yeah, okay, true. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, have you spotted any gameplay related questions?
Well, there was a question about the existence of moving walls or moving shield lines from
We
Mr.
can
Rangevden.
show that. So, please remain seated, everyone. So we arrived at a new system here, and we engaged directly into a tutorial introductory mission where you get explained the 2 basic paths, right? The attack path and the defense path. So these guys are basically, yeah, let's not go into the story details, I don't want to ruin everything. So these are not nice guys, and they're shooting at us, and they're actually taking down drones. As you can see, there is little explosions here and there. That's basically drones dying. We'll make that more pronounced still, since we already saw in at PAX, for instance, that people would underestimate the number of drones that they lost, and now we're gonna kill them. So basically what you can see here is we draw paths, right? There's different types of path: attack path, defense path, physical path, and so on. And when we do, the drones are automatically grabbed from the swarm pool around the Argo, which is our mothership, and are then executing the command. And as you can see, as every single drone is simulated, we can actually have holes in walls. So there is torpedoes that on impact push these ones that on impact disable drones. See, they punch the holes in, and then the other torpedoes actually can pass through. Because again, all the drones are simulated, so we can find out if they actually hit drones or not, these torpedoes. And as you can see, there was a stray one that still blocked the incoming torpedoes, others went through. That's something you have to be careful. So this is actually quite a nasty combination when they have disabling torpedoes and damaging torpedoes. That's pretty nasty. So let's get rid of them quickly so we can go and show a little bit of a sandbox to you, because we are gonna use a couple of cheats
Multiple warp signatures detected.
and unlock a lot more abilities than we are actually supposed to at this point. So is there a moving wall? Yes. So that would be the charged wall that you can charge up and then release, will form a wall and move, which is great to attack or basically defend against, for instance, if they have some very strong weapons that disable all your drones. It's great to use them as a screen, so to say, before you get in and attack properly, you know? I mean, obviously there is more advanced tactics than trying to hit them with this attack here, because I can do all kinds of things. But yeah, should I go into that much detail already?
Just maybe you should know that we have some basic abilities, like you've seen: attack, wall, the kinetic path, and some other undisclosed path down there, maybe. And they each have these modes, like the path mode, the loop mode, and the charge mode.
Exactly, I can show them off. So
yeah, maybe
this is the wall, right? I can shape it however I like, right? With right click I can basically dissolve any path I have there, and having different shapes helps. For instance, with this weird combos where they do disabling shots and attacking shots, something like this might be quite useful, because even though they might punch through the first layer, they will likely not punch to both, unless they have so many disabling ones, right? So this is the basic defense one, right? Then we have the basic attack one, which is I have an attack, they move there, attack, and go back, right? Let's look at this in more detail. You see every drone actually has a collision, does damage, and let's take away this one so we only have this one annoying guy there anymore. So, good. Then we have the physical path. This is basically used a lot for repositioning enemies or ships or whatever you actually want to reposition. As you can see, it roughly puts it back to where I wanted it to be, which in this case didn't make much sense, obviously, but suppose there is a gas cloud that explodes if he's entered, or it's a mission objective actually, that he's a life pod and I need to bring the life pod over here, or I want to position something like an asteroid in the way of incoming projectiles. So it blocks incoming projectiles for me instead of having to put a wall there, or maybe because the wall would be disintegrated otherwise. So there's a lot of reasons why you might wanna push stuff about, right? So that's one thing. Then we have the energy path, which, should I tell them already what it does? Is that spoiling like too much?
Yeah, spoiling kinda too much.
Yeah. I'm not talking it all through. So there is energy stuff. That's cool. We can do loops. We can do charge ups. Like I showed before, this is a charge path, right? It charges up with the drones there. Once I release, it does something. I'm showing the moving wall. I'm not gonna spoil all the other abilities already. And we can do a targeted one. Which one should I spoil, Andre?
I think the attack one would be the one that's the least. I
So-
mean, shows the targeted behavior, but not.
It here. So this is basically,
Great
yeah.
job, Commander. You've survived.
You can
It
have it
should-
on an enemy, it will follow the enemy, and then basically, in this case, do more and more and more and more damage. Not very useful against a small target, but against big ones, quite devastating. And yeah, again, I'm not gonna spoil the energy one. It's cool, I tell you that. The question to the targeted behavior, does it work around shields? That very much depends on what type of targeted. So basically, we very much designed all our behaviors in a way that it's basically a state that the drones go into, and certain states of drones, like attack state, they react in a certain way to certain weapons, defenses like shields or whatnot, right? And it's always consistent. So the basic rule is if an attack drone hits a directional shield, it will be disabled, period. Right? So if one of your targeted attacks drones hits the shield, it will be disabled. Since the attack is coming from above, I leave the rest to your imagination. So here in the galaxy map, that is basically our a way to find where we jump next, what to do, and so on. So as said, we are on the Argo, we are searching for New Earth, right? So we want to find a new home for humanity, and then we can jump to different locations. Obviously, since I just started a new game in the beginning, it's more like a tutorial sequence to get you into familiarized, but later on it will spread into a lot of different branches that you can go and actually select yourself where you want to go. Superbrain 8 had a question, will there be a benefit from having a high core count CPU? Absolutely, you will get higher FPS. So probably with a super high core count, you will end up having a CPU bound game, GPU bound game, sorry, because of all the rendering and things going on, because we still have to render 32,000 drones. That's also taking a little bit of a toll. Here we already see the Vor. They're an alien race. I'm not gonna dive too deep into all their shenanigans, since again I don't want to spoil you, but suffice to say they're one of the main factions in the game. There's two, basically the Dashan and the Vor. The enemies you encountered earlier are not a major faction, let's say, but is something you will encounter again and again. But yeah, the Vor are very missile based. Andre, maybe you wanna add a couple of things?
Yeah, they're missile based, they lack mobility a bit, as you can definitely see here. And I mean, they're slow in general, and they're kind of resilient, as we will also see in here. I mean, in comparison to the other ships that you've seen. Of course, frigates are still kind of light on the mass, so that you can still push them around and do weird things with them. But
I shoot the cannonballs. Whoa, nice.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Let's break them up, help the guys, otherwise they're getting stuck here.
Yeah, as you can see, we've at least in this build that we're showing, the AI is kept
minimal.
Yeah, let's say we wanted it to be more predictable, right? Because with all the ingredients that we have that are based on physics and I don't know, on some hitboxes impacting each other and all that, then at least some of the elements on screen needed to be more predictable. Otherwise, it just became super fast a mess. And we resorted to having the ship behavior, kept to something that is kind of simple like that. It
because the thing is,
once you shoots, orbits, kind of this up.
Because the thing is, once you add quite some avoidance behavior to them, things get quite unpredictable to you as a player. Because then you don't know, right? They will try to circumvent and whatnot and be intelligent about how they go about, which will look very good. That yes, if done very well. But on the other hand, it also kills any kind of predictability, which is kind of important if they move, that you predict where they're gonna be, so you can attack them where they're gonna be.
Yeah, if we will go further a bit in the story, as you will probably get to see, the other guys are
Yes.
much more mobile and thus much more annoying.
Maybe it's the last of
Just
them.
a
These
super
ones are
simple
more
thing, like a smaller hitbox and some faster movement, and it already changes the way you approach them. I mean, you would still try to hit them.
I'm taking a lot of punishment here, which I probably shouldn't. So,
well.
Oh, I missed that one. Because I basically have no drones left. So that is something that we want you guys to understand very well, is how to manage your drones, basically. So there is always this ring about, that's your pool, right? If you expand everyone in your pool, then there's no final shield around the Argo anymore, and every damage you get is gonna be directed going.
Actually, I think that's a pretty big change since last time you saw this, which is the fact that the swarm that moves around the Argo actually acts like that's most of your hit points, let's say, as well. So they would intercept anything that's aimed at the Argo. They will behave like, you know, normal drones, so they can still be disabled and such. But as they get hit, your offense gets a bit. Yeah.
My offense gets weakened, everything will become more difficult.
And with the more that you send out, the less will protect you, of course.
I sent out 4k here, right? If I do another 4k here and another 4k here, I'm already out of drones. See, here I didn't even get the full 4k and my Argo is getting hammered. I will probably die on this one. See?
Broke your window. Oh.
No, it's dead! So maybe let's start a new game here instead. Because, well, I took way too much punishment while explaining stuff. So while it loads up, does everybody have additional questions on gameplay or whatever you can come up with?
You're asking about the ray weapons, yeah?
Yes.
They're the lasers are present. They're present on the other faction more, and on the pirates. I guess. I don't know why you didn't see them in the first one, but they're about, yeah.
So yeah, it's basically one of the races, the Vor, are the missile-based ones, as we said, and the other big race is the Dashan. And the Dashan, yeah, have very much almost entirely laser-based weapons. So you have to deal with them quite differently. Oh, I have to turn on the screen again, right?
If you want to stream, just...
Yeah, I can.
Just to ask you to the second part of your question, like slowing down the drones, we didn't want to use effects on the drones too much, so they can be disabled in various durations and you know, they get pushed away for various distances, but slowing them down, not a thing, because there's a lot of calculations going about those things. Julian can probably tell you more as to why we're not touching them too hard, but
also from a gameplay perspective, it's dangerous, right? I'm gonna be cheaty now and go back my full drones.
Laser-based weapons be redirectable by shields will most likely be an upgrade. They will work like that, and some of them will be probably redirectionable. I'm not sure if all of them. But we did some interesting things with the lasers also. Just with their simple behavior like that, there's a lot of variation to go by.
So, let's talk about this cruiser here.
can join back to the stream, guys.
We
Sorry?
did it. Let's get out of here.
They can join back in the stream again.
Yes,
Yeah, just
we
streaming
can.
it.
Just saying.
I'm streaming it.
Yeah, but then they're here. 31 boyos.
Okay, so it's time that we meet the other race. So all the research between jumps, that's work in progress, but there will be research. But here you have your lasers. That's the Dashan. They are way more hit and run.
Looks like gibberish, but
And they're at war with the
Gibberish
war,
with
right?
orders.
So
Their target lock-
you will
Watch
be
out for those
needing
lasers.
to select who you
Swarm
join in a
they
fight.
pass through.
Let's kill some off and then look at them in more detail. Okay, so let's look at this Dashan boy. It's a frigate, so as you can see the laser is a blue laser, so it's disabling stuff, which can be quite nasty if there is other lasers behind it. In itself it does a little bit of damage too, but not quite so much. As you can see, it still kills the drones by the hundreds, but since you have 32,000, it's okay. Especially since if we do this one, yeah, it's gone.
Good job.
Yeah, they're more fragile
These
like
laser
that. And of
weapons are
course,
nasty.
these ones are the slower versions, but they definitely move faster. We just realized that with the way we, the attack path grows and the speed of the drones and all that, if they move too fast right at the
Hungers
start,
for it.
gets a bit
That's not
frustrating
encouraging.
catching them. So everything moves a bit slower in the first few missions.
Hip Link had a question if the drones run on the GPU and how the interactions are done. So they're not running on GPU anymore, as I was explaining before. But before they actually were running on GPU, and that was pretty much also the bottleneck, the interactions. That is, without the interaction, I would say we could have easily had, I don't know, 128,000 or even more drones going on, but the limiting factor was the interaction. But since that's the gameplay, it's not something we can simply drop. But the readback and the, let's say, pipeline stalling that was going on because of it was causing the main bottleneck for the performance. Rage of Sen had another question. Will all laser-based weapons be redirectable by using shields?
It's an upgrade.
It's an upgrade definitely for the world. So initially, as you just saw, they were not redirected.
And probably some of the laser weapons, based on their power or their means of being applied, will not be.
Exactly. So I'm hesitant to say all of them will be redirected. I would say most of them, but if not, we will obviously convey that why and whatnot, to make it clear. And trying to make weird and strange geometric shapes, absolutely, please go for it.
The green path, the kinetic path,
yes,
has changed since the original one that you may probably have seen at the last Gamescom. It's now more precise, just picks up things and moves them along the path like that. And we're also gonna use that for some gameplay tricks we can do.
Yes,
say that deals more with placement of things.
I mean,
on the map.
The path how it worked before, was cool, but also quite inefficient when it comes to drone utilage. So here you can repair stuff, by upgrades.
This is another thing that has been added. It's relatively recent, I guess, in the history of it. That on the map you just have a bunch of systems that you can one time use for repairs and installing Argo upgrades and learning new swarm tricks, right?
Yes.
So they're like
that's where you push it forward.
Spots.
ultimately, as you go through the story, you get first of almost you gather all the wreckage that you leave behind, right? And all this wreckage, you extract the salvage that you need here as a resource to repair your swarm and repair the Argo, and install new upgrades on the Argo. Like there will be additional defensive modules and whatnot that you will be able to install on the Argo. Additionally, there is basically, you are the captain of this vessel, right? So you're sitting up here in the bridge, and you control the swarm via your psionic power, so something like telepathic. And the thing is, you get better with it, right? So you, as you gather strength and experience, you can unlock new ways of interacting with the swarm, which in our case means upgrades to swarm abilities or new swarm abilities entirely. Because as you might have seen, we start initially with only attack and defense, but that will change very fast and then increase. Cannonball is still there. Yeah, that's actually it. This whole screen obviously is also work in progress. There is just the drone movement here is way too erratic still, as you can probably see. So
I'm picking up a distress call. It seems to be someplace that's under attack.
how do you like our text-to-speech? I hope you love it. So here, for the first time, the cluster opens up and gives you choices, right? So there's different colors of systems, which all will have effects. So it's basically battle modifiers, if you want. Make enemies faster, but also your own stuff. Also make more damage, but also your own stuff, and so on. So it will shift, and then depending on what race is residing there, in what strength and difficulty, and so on, it will keep things fresh, basically. So, which one of these has the gas clouds, Andre?
The mist.
Which makes sense. Reinforced bulkheads, let's research that so we can see an Argo upgrade.
Yeah.
We thought of super
There's a
abilities,
ship caught into one of these particle clouds.
but
It seems to be affected by
well,
the cloud.
it's
Seems to
so
not
far we
function
decided
properly.
always against it whenever
Gibberish
the
threatening.
discussion
It
came up.
seems we're given no court.
So unless there is a good reason, we will probably not have super abilities, since it's really about you toying around with the drones, how the different abilities combine and so on, and how they interact with all the weapons and effects that the other guys have, right? So having a super ability kind of contradicts that. Also here you can see a disabling gas cloud. So it's a blue one, it's constantly there, and right now it's pretty much disabling every ship here. I mean, these two probably have a bug because they're turned in the wrong direction. The disabling, as you can see, ships disabled, weapons disabled. For a brief instant in time, the weapons might be unaffected again, which is when he shoots. But as you can see, it otherwise is immobile. And it also affects our drones. Like if I do an attack path in here, see, drones will be disabled for a bit and return home. So it's not affecting me too badly, but still it's weakening my attacks. And later clouds might be more dense. That really, really could be bad for you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? For
And of
those
course-
who missed the cannonball before.
Yeah, I meant you can of course use the map hazards to your advantage with the push
Of
path.
course.
You know, just
Pushing
let them in.
all stuff into the cloud is a viable.
Do you have the regular pusher path? I think is it on or is it just the cannonball? I think it's just the cannonball.
Activate it really quick.
Yeah, so this is the new behavior for it. So it no longer pushes to the sides, but now drags things along.
That's what
I don't know why it
happens.
didn't drag this, but it should.
Maybe because I just activated it.
I don't know. Maybe because it's
So
a
that
bit
did the
wider
trick
than
too.
the ship. Who knows? We'll see. Right.
So now they're all in there. Anybody, any more questions? Otherwise, we can definitely go through the list above. Where did we reach there actually?
If you're if you lose one encounter, your ship is destroyed. You can restart just that battle, or just restart from your previous save, basically. For the saves, we're planning on having one of these systems where you have like a profile, you know, and it just keeps the last save, so you're not gonna be able to save scum too much. Sarissimo, yes, definitely you can have a wall, a cloud that is dense enough that you can't, you know, maybe get to kill it, but we'll try to not have that, or at least not in a regular setting,
beginning.
but maybe as a puzzle or something later on that
Yes.
you have to figure out.
I mean, since you can use path chaining, which is something you might not know yet. So, generally, the mechanic is if you draw a path, you see the number of drones that will be committed to this path increases, right? So the longer the path, the more drones are gonna be there. So here, for instance, it's about 10,000. That's also the limit I currently have at the beginning, right? I can
That's
unlock
progression.
more. So in the end, I will be able to commit all 32,000 drones to a single path and make basically a path that is about thrice as long as this one. Which is again progression. And it also is a risk-reward scenario, since in the beginning, committing 10,000 drones still leaves you with about 20,000 if you are full around the Argo as a, let's say, emergency shield, right? But if you commit 32,000 drones, all drones will be stripped away, leaving your Argo defenseless, getting punished really hard, right? And that then obviously isn't, let's say, very beginner friendly, which is why one of the reasons why we limit it in the first place. Another thing, later on with 32,000 drones, you can drive single attacks that are just more powerful than shorter ones, right? Because of more drones being added. There was actually a question of Rage of Sen. Will we be able to affect the drone usage in commands separate from the length of the drawn command line? So it's a thing we talked about, but ultimately decided against, because it makes the controls so fiddly, and this is still a very natural way of doing it, right? The longer the attack, thus the more time you commit to the path, the more drones will go there. That also affects our charge ups. As you can see, it charges up to a certain number of drones and then stops charging, which is the maximum number of drones you currently can have for a single swarm. So what I want actually to say, what if you want to make an attack path up here? Wait, that's a bad example. Let's say up here, but you don't want them to drive through the entire gas cloud first, right? And get disabled on the way. What you can do is draw a line up here with normal, no ability selected, and then while you still have it clicked, switch to the attack path. And then they will move along that line and then there, right? So basically with this ability, you will be able to circumvent clouds that disable all your drones or even kill all your drones. One solution we still have to figure out is what to do with the returning drones. Because as you just saw, they moved straight through the gas cloud being disabled, which is absolutely not what we want. But we also didn't want to have a path chaining that has you... I mean, we could, but it feels weird to make the attack up there. So first you chain it up, then you do the attack, and then you chain it up again. Works, right? As you can see now. Actually
it's
works.
very cumbersome.
But it's super cumbersome, right? So we're thinking of just making the returning drones a special state that is pretty much not affected by anything, but they also don't do anything, don't block projectiles nor anything else. Actually, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
So let's scroll down again and see what other questions have arisen. There was a question, will we ever encounter at any level another drone swarm ship like ours? No. There's a simple reason. The mechanics of fighting another swarm are entirely different. Like, how would a swarm defend against another swarm with a wall, for instance? That just doesn't make sense. Also, an attack through another swarm, how would that work? Every drone annihilating another one? So yeah, it's an entirely different set of mechanics, which is something we might expand in someone, maybe even when we do Drones Swarm 2, who knows, you know? But it's definitely not something for Drone Swarm in its current state.
There was a question about the monetization strategy that I think is good if we can address shortly.
Yeah, of course. It will be full of ads and it will be having in-app purchase. No, of course
Yeah,
not.
gotcha.
So, yeah, we don't like that either. So we definitely don't have that. It's gonna be a one-time pay thing, and that's it. And then you have the full game. We will keep updating it. Yeah, that's about it. Other than that, we haven't set anything in stone yet. Lut asks, is there an upgrade or skill tree for the drones to overcome the cloud? I mean, we have various upgrades. We're still debating whether, like, environmental hazards, you know, our philosophy for the upgrades is that, wait, I'll kill this guy because otherwise he will terminate me at some point. Our philosophy for all our upgrades, or this guy too, but if I kill him, it's over, right, Andre?
Just put a wall in front. No, I think you need to kill the cruiser too, and the cruiser is very quiet as an individual. Yeah, you can kill him, no problem. You can, that is.
I can and I shall. But it's hard in a cloud, it's really hard.
Pushing your things about, man.
What was I saying actually? Yeah, yeah, right. Our philosophy for the upgrades is that all our upgrades are quite powerful or strong. Like a new ability, like if we do a damage increase upgrade at some point, for instance, then it's not gonna be, oh, you're gonna get 2% more damage. No, It's like 50%, boom, here you go, you know? So you actually feel a difference and you look forward to it. And when you play it, it's like, wow, nice, I feel more. I actually feel my choice. So if an upgrade then just allows you to, you know, avoid being disabled in a gas cloud, that's not even in any or every map, right? That might be too shallow. So if we have an upgrade along those lines, we might have it more powerful than just disabling clouds will not affect me as much.
Like, for example, the disabling duration of the drones is halved or something like that.
For
that
everything.
Could be a thing for everything.
Yes, but that might again be too powerful. So we'll have to take a close look at this. But again, this is exactly why we will have playtests. Seeing what works and what doesn't, what is cool to play against and what is simply annoying to play against. Because obviously you don't want to play an annoying game all the time. So then there was the question. I would say having the drones being invisible on the way back would be quite easy. Emo, I think it is just how much of a skill level you want to include in the game, like rewarding players for drawing both paths, but maybe at the same time not make it too punishing for players who don't. True, definitely making them invisible would work, though then following their path is hard. Making them semi-transparent is a little bit of a rendering limitation, I would say, at the moment, but of course also that can be overcome. But yeah, something along those lines. Clearly mark them in any case that you see that they're acting differently.
Also, from a like strictly work perspective, I can tell you that balancing as it is, let's say, a challenge, to put it mildly,
Yes.
right? So if we add these things like pathing challenges or I don't know what, it will, and trying to balance around that, it will definitely get out of scope really fast.
What is actually the challenge for balancing drone swarm? Maybe say a couple of words about that.
Well, the fact that, as I said, interactions between objects is not the super straightforward thing like you would expect in an RTS, for example. You have the damage and you have the hit points and some armor in between, and they all go about that. Here it's about how you hit the things, how hard, physically, how hard, how many drones are involved. The number of drones involved is also not a very strict number that you exactly know how it's going to be. So every attack has some sort of what's it called, a degree of uncertainty, let's say, right? It's based on the ship's hitbox. Like, for example, the same attack path, we had an issue before we fixed it, that the same attack path that you see normally, which was in the shape of a tube, more or less, would hit more on cruisers than on frigates, because the hitbox of the frigates was kind of small and it kind of fit inside the tube if you really centered it, right?
Yeah. So if you would hit it fully, it would almost like 50%, 40 to 50% of the drones would actually miss.
Yeah. So that one we got, but there's others that are just, if you do an attack on this cruiser, for example, and you just hit the tip of it, that means just half of your drones are going in. So even if it did something spectacular right now, that's because I don't know, there's some setting that's weirder on it. But it would normally do half the damage, even though in a regular, I don't know, again, RTS like scenario, you would expect that whatever, if you drew a path through something, the path actually deals the damage, right? So if it crosses the model, you would expect the full damage, but here it's not. It's based on drones, right? Also, once you get the access to the physical path and the other one, we don't talk about as well, that also changes the way you approach a fleet scenario. Like you would expect it to be dealt with by attacking in a way that you balance for, because say you know the damage that the drones would do, and if you do a path, it deals, I don't know, 32,000 damage. So the ship that has 64,000 will be done in 2 passes. But then you have the interactions with the physical path. So you throw a boulder at them, or you throw one ship at another, or you have some, I don't know, projectiles that later on you can push about, and those can be redirected, or you redirect
again
the laser. Everything just
there, for instance, would say, yeah, well, throwing an asteroid at a ship just does, I don't know, 20,000 damage. Well, it is hard to put, right? Because you can charge it, your cannonball up however much you like. It could be 5,000 drones, it could be 10,000 drones, it could be 32,000 drones, right? And that will change how many drones actually transfer the impulse onto the asteroid. That changes how fast the asteroid will travel afterwards. So we kind of have to integrate the, let's say, how fast does the asteroid travel into how much damage it does, right? And then you have another layer of indirection. It's like, how many drones actually hit the asteroid? If the asteroid is super tiny, not even everybody might hit it, right? How much does it then result in the speed of that asteroid thing? How much is the mass of the asteroid compared to the mass of the ship, which affects how much the impact is gonna be? And then the impact translates into the damage, and that should be balanced, right? So yeah, there's quite some knobs
so
to turn.
because of this situation so this situation is the reason that we've come to aim to simplify whatever we can, or standardize in some way, or the ingredients be made simple enough that with all this kind of random-ish interactions with them, you still get some predictable results out of. That's why you see the ships again just orbiting maybe, or orbiting each other, or just being in a position so that at least the ships are there, so the movement and the positioning and all that is not something super fancy. The impact, what they're called, the swarm interaction colliders thing on the ships, they're also like enveloping the ship as broadly as we can, so we don't have issues where you just hit the tip and call it a full damage or no damage hit, just based on the shape of the drone's formation that reached it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rage
So
Sen had another question about illusion abilities, decoy abilities, and aggro mitigation abilities. So aggro mitigation is not really a thing, since there is basically the swarm and the Argo, that's it, and the ship, depending on their weaponry, have preferences. Either they are strong against the swarm, which is what they will attack then, or not. But the other illusions and decoy, let's say, how should I answer this, Andre?
I mean, let's say they're embedded in other mechanics that are more simple. Like the fact that some ship has a weapon type that is triggered by the presence of a certain number of drones in its vicinity, can be exploited to, send the minimum amount of drones.
Should be exploited.
Yeah.
I mean, we design stuff so you use a smaller number of drones to distract an enemy, then attack from a different side or whatever, right? I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, but there is not a specific I now distract this enemy ability, because, well, it's hard to read, plus we found not that much fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to dive into the details of what abilities we have instead that are fun in our eyes, but rest assured there is crowd control abilities as well. Because crowd control obviously is gonna be
Rage of Zen, the aggro the way the ships behaved last time you saw them has been changed a bit, in the sense that in the previous builds the weapons availability kind of also dictated how the ships move, right? So if it had some weapons on the right side that were off cooldown, it would have tried to turn with the right side and shoot at whatever was there. But now this has been finally dissociated, so the ship has its movement orders that it follows, and the weapons have some area of effect in which, if they find a suitable target at range and that satisfies some other criteria, it will shoot at it. So that you can plan around that better than having a super smart ship that always presents its best side to you, right? Is becoming frustrating really fast the more ships you had on the field. To answer Lid's question, it's possible to make a shield of drones around the ship to catch it, but the shields right now, the basic version of the wall is can be pushed through by the ships, and you will have to upgrade it later to be able to catch stuff. And even then, some ships, based on their impulse and such, or on their weapons, might pass through.
It depends on their drives, right? It depends on how many drones are actually trying to block it. Think of it as Guardians of the Galaxy, right? They form the wall and they hold the ship back for a while. That's what you can upgrade the wall to. But at some point, if the thrust of the incoming ship is big enough, it will break through. So you can just catch it temporarily.
In its earliest representations, it was extremely powerful against that Dashan faction that relies on mobility, because you just spread them around, and of course they acted as some nets and just ruined the whole fleet setup that I worked on so hard to make look pretty. Just as an example. No.
Any other questions? Oh, Polyxena has a question. What is in the game the things we should fear the most when fighting? Who would be the greatest enemy of our drones? I would say
non-disclosed. No. An undisclosed weapon system in the future.
And I just mentioned it.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's you will feel it very fast when you encounter it the first time. Don't underestimate the flak.
There are some, and in general, some combinations of like disabling the drones and shooting them afterwards would cause some nasty stuff, and the enemies will try to take advantage of that. I tried to. I mean, we decided on keeping the progression of the enemies, like the encounters, kind of mimic as best as possible what you would expect, also story-wise, or as a realistic response to this kind of threat. So you're a, I don't know, spacefaring civilization with some degree of tech, and then you got these guys with the drones coming about in your space, and they're trying to do things in there, right? And then of course, at first they will come at you with their conventional things, like the missiles, the rockets you saw, or I don't know, the larger, the EMP ones that disable your drones, right? But as they progress, they will look in their, let's say, virtual arsenal there and come up with stuff that is better suited when dealing with the drones, like maybe EMP blasts or stuff that deny you mobility, or things that are super effective in tracking drones, or things that bypass drones altogether, or they're ignored by drones. Yeah, this.
Because initially they, of course, fighting mostly other ships, right? So all their weapons are geared towards that.
Yeah.
This card asks, when will the game be ready? 2020.
Every weapon fire capable of friendly fire. Yes, it is. Unless they're smart in some way, all the weapons will be capable of friendly fire.
And it will be used.
Yes,
in the design of some encounters. So.
Some encounters at least will rely on that, and the others, I mean, there will be, how is it called? Circumstantial, right? If you can find some way, you would to push some enemy into other enemies' field of fire, it will work.
Except of the psionic powers. So Polyxena asks if there's any space magic, so to say, going on apart from the psionic part. No. We aim for having a hard sci-fi universe here. So we explain a lot of things. So maybe if you just zoom in here, the Vor guys actually use an antimatter engine or propulsion, which is like they're quite sophisticated in their technology, far beyond what we humans can do at this point. So they can basically have antimatter from one side and matter from the other side annihilate in the middle, creating this bright annihilation light. And there is this parabolic structure there, so all the photons that are being pushed out of this annihilation process, which is also the light we're seeing right now, are reflected at this parabolic mirror there, pushed outwards, and that's propelling the ship, which is basically the most efficient propulsion system that we currently can imagine. I mean, if you read up on the concept, it definitely works. We just don't have the technological means to do it yet. But it's super efficient because the photons apply an impulse and travel at the speed of light. And if your propulsion matter, the speed of your propulsion matter is basically
the impulse.
Important in how fast you can go.
Yeah, Julian would have magic if he could, but he's constrained.
No,
to a hard sci-fi universe.
actually, no. In sci-fi, I don't like base magic at all. I like in fantasy magic. That's a big difference.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, also all the technology upgrades that you will be gathering and the lore that you will be gathering will contain information about the technology they are using and also what technology you're using. Obviously, we're still in the realm of sci-fi, so not everything will be explained in a way that you can afterwards replicate the tech, but we try to be as fact-driven as we can.
Timed paths are not a thing. You cannot use 2 cannonballs because by the time you charge up the other one you shot first will already run its course. But I mean, there are the static. You can abandon a path on its way. You just draw it and let it do its thing, and then do some other things with it. But the cannonballs specifically, the charged attacks will
like you
be
can
used.
do something like this, right? And then do this here. So when
That
you
would
both
work.
are ready, and then boom, that you could
Right.
do.
Yeah.
I definitely need more drones here. Maybe I should.
Maybe, hopefully it works.
Pin it.
I doubt. It worked. Yes. Found them all. Yeah.
Will there possibility to mod the game? So I would say no. The thing is, we have talked about it quite a bit. We're using RTC Draft to design all our encounters, and at the moment you require the Unity editor, including our game project, to integrate, or let's basically say export all the data from RTC Draft so it actually works in game. So this kind of makes it hard for us to make it moddable. We though have contacts with RTC Draft at Navigo, and we definitely will open discussions on this again, since there might be ways that we get it to work in the future, but so far not. This card is sad, but winky sad.
Maybe there's just a tear in the corner of the eye there.
Maybe it's a tear in the corner of it. I take it as a winky, and I'm not as devastated. For Rage of Zen, no, you cannot say that. Again, we didn't want to complicate controls more, so rather we feel there is enough that you can do with let's say just doing the attacks and the whole paths in real time, without then also saying, okay, you do in 10 seconds, you do in 2 seconds. gets very confusing very quick.
Also, as I said, this ties into, so the thing is, if you put the thing in the game, you have to balance for it, and balance holding, you know, kind of hard. So I'd rather have the tools as simple as possible. We have this skill shot kind of thing, which is the cannonball for every of the 4 types of states, and you know, just one of the limitations we get to play around with.
Polyxena asks if Drone Swarm 2 could be a thing, then possibly 2 swarms would be possible, allowing for a PvP mode. Yes, I have no idea yet what Drone Swarm 2 could entail. So for now, we'll make this the most awesome we can. Jerry,
please
you're
mute this
not
Jerry
allowed.
person.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jerry is not allowed to ask questions, and all his questions will be ignored.
No,
See?
he's also doing the sad thing now.
No, Rage of 10! You are banned from questions as well now.
No brigade.
No. Ah,
Well,
since when is the development going on? Long. No, I mean, you guys know when we announced it. I think it was 2015 for the very first time, then 2016 for real. So yeah, since then, right? But what's really nice? Yeah, I mean, what's really nice about this is that obviously we didn't work on it full time all the time, but what we actually did is try out a lot of iterations on the swarm control mechanics, on also how the swarm behaves in general. I don't know how many prototypes we actually had. At some point, we really should do a video about that, all the different control mechanisms. Some of them will sound absolutely amazing, but turned out to be absolutely shit in game. But yeah, there was, I don't know, at least 7 different ways on how you control, maybe 8 or 9, how you control the drones, fully implemented, fully functional, and then dismissed for one reason or another. If you remember 2018, we actually had a quite decent system running, where we made a big presentation also at Gamescom, where there is a lot of videos out there, and that one was working good. But after that, we always felt like, is that really it? Right? Is that all the swarm amounts to? Because it was very classical RTS unit, kind of diminishing the drones to almost, it's not super a gimmick then, but it's like diminishing the potential of the drones ultimately. So we went back to the scrapboard and tried again, and came up with something that was working a lot better, which is the path system, and that one got another 1 or 2 iterations on top, and now we're at this, because now you can really do super fast, super cool stuff, like 3 attack swarms at the same time, easy, right? Before, that would have been impossible. System requirements, I mean, this here is a i5 4th generation, so 4200 I think it is, on the CPU side, and even though I'm streaming, I'm having about 50 FPS and a 1060 graphics card. I mean, that's definitely not bad, but I think the minimum requirements will be a lot lower than this. We still have to figure out, since a lot of the performance optimizations are still on our list, and yeah, but we're still evaluating. but it will definitely be a lot lower than my computer.
We used to have the possibility to, or at least the number of subswarms you could make were numbered, as you can maybe recall from our previous presentations or the previous versions. Right now, since these changes have been made with the swarm being around the Argo at all time and acting as protection and all that, we have this new method of just doing as many swarms as you like, as Julian
As
can probably
many as
show
you need, actually, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can just
So
start...
you just do the actions, whatever you want, and at some point you run out of drones, obviously, but that's your limitation.
The SAW attack is coming back in the form of a circular attack path. That was, yeah, it's more freeform than the SAW attack, which was kind of gamey at the time.
Yes, the SAW attack, even though it looked cool and everything, had a big issue that it's a very local thing, right? You have the SAW, it does stuff, it just scales with the amount of drones, but it's not flexible.
Here I mean, we have the drill attack, right?
With the drill attack, which is kind of replacing it, but here I can do whatever I want, right? And that was very important, that you could use the versatility of the swarm properly, and not just click a button, do a thing, and then it executes on its own, the drones basically becoming a gimmick. We mentioned two factions in the game we need to choose. Is there a possibility to play and continue with the progression without choosing, keeping it neutral? Nope. Basically, imagine you are in an alien sector searching for your world. Every world is either occupied by the Vor or the Dashan, and there's a war raging. You are only one ship, and even though you're maybe more powerful than their most strongest ship, they both are empires with pretty much a limitless supply of ships. So not allying with anybody might be a bad idea.
Yeah. Also, if even though your fantasy, so to speak, is that you are the commander in charge of the expedition, in a way, you're also you're also answering to somebody. So it's not exactly that you're given free rein to do what you must. I don't know. A good example, I think, for that is the way you can travel around the systems. Right? So you visit the star system, you deal with your event there, and then as you leave, the system cannot be visited again, right? So, I mean, gameplay-wise, the systems are also some kind of resource that you have to manage in a way. And the fact that you cannot go back is explained, you know, by your directive as an expedition, that everybody tells you, yeah, there's no point in going back to an empty system that we know it's empty, so you just have to press forward. Same with jumping from one cluster to the next, and so on and so forth. Right, so that also explains the fact that you are kind of compelled to ally. There's no way to go around that. You were expected to. An endless mode, yeah, we talked about it a bit at the start. It's something we thought about. I don't know if we're gonna have it in the base version. I mean, it will come right at the start with the game. Oh, I mean, one concept that we've been moving around was that you could have it like you need to survive some waves, for example, in like an endless wave mode coming in at you in the same environment, or with the environment slightly changing when it comes to hazards and so on.
You need a bigger path.
You wanna terminate the poor defenseless damaged cruiser?
Dead now. Good riddance.
Yes, there will definitely be. So, Lind asked, will there be some collectibles or special conditions on levels? Absolutely. Right now you see a lot of let's say, simply I fight encounters, but that will be a lot more, from assassinations, protections, puzzle
Seems we
events,
stumbled onto a mining operation.
where you, I mean, what could be an example, like an asteroid storm where you need to push out the asteroids coming in, or a mining operation where you have to steal the cargo they collected, stuff like that. So a lot of different things. Will drones some have multiplayer capabilities in the future? In the near future, no. In the long future, I hope so. Any other questions? No level editor. I mean, as said, rather we would have modding. Of course, an in-game level editor would be amazing, so you can just create your own campaign in-game. Andre, wouldn't that be neat?
It would be amazing, but I mean, it would be super good even now, to be honest. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
If it was built already. Marcus did not clean his desks as usual. Let's not go into the dirt there. Any other final questions?
Is there something we forgot from that first list?
Yeah, any that we didn't respond to?
That with the streaming Stadia, GeForce Now thing, if we're gonna have something.
That was already answered by Astragon, so it's not clear at this point, but it's definitely an option. Generally, platforms-wise, it's definitely gonna be Windows, that for sure, and Steam on that front. But beyond that, we are open to everything pretty much. So let's see where it will be on. And in terms of Mac and Linux, not at launch, but again, if enough players actually would like to see it, that's a strong motivation to do it. Are streams of the playtests limited to Discord, or are we allowed to stream on Twitch? That will depend on the playtest. We will announce it with the playtest every time.
But I mean, I guess if you're allowed to stream, you'll be allowed to stream
everywhere.
I guess wherever.
I mean, but again, let's see. We will have also private playtests where we do not want to share. Maybe there's something more experimental, or simply something, let's say, the untrained eye, which is not you guys, will look at and feel like, oh, this is weird. Yeah, maybe with context it wouldn't be, but then we wouldn't want to show it outside yet. Then there was the question, can you release it now so we can play it now? I
mean,
no. I mean, we could, but at this point, there is a reason we don't do a playtest, because at the moment we still have a lot of things we know ourselves that we want to change before we give it into your hands. Your feedback is valuable once we feel, well, this plays nice already, or we have an experiment in there which we want to see how you guys like it, how it's even understandable, you know. So as said, the playtest, if all goes well, goes into beginning mid of June, and so I would expect one playtest to happen for sure in June, and then you will be able to give us a ton of feedback that then will keep us occupied for the months or weeks after until the next playtest. So, do you have any plans on releasing a devlog about the drone system and how you managed to create a system to calculate those drones? There will be dev diaries. And the drone tech is definitely a strongly requested topic. So I guess we will also make one about those. How is the TV series going? There was an announcement a while ago. There wasn't an announcement for the TV series. There was the announcement for the cooperation with 451 that are doing the comics. The comics are going well. The TV series is basically where ideally 451 will push this. So it's not yet a thing, but I hope it will be. Would be amazing. Can I sign up for Devlogs? Absolutely. Be in this Discord or be in on our newsletter, and you will be hearing about the about the playtest we're conducting. So for the playtest, as usual, we will send out basically a small questionnaire, so we can select a broad group of people to be part of it. Because obviously we don't want to give it out to all who are interested in doing a playtest at the very first time, because what's super important is first time experiences, right? So if you never have played Droneswarm before, do you understand it? That's basically the main question, because obviously for us it's the most important that you enjoy Droneswarm, how we designed it, but if then the elements are not understood, how are you supposed to enjoy it? So we will then step by step get new players involved and pick up the ones that already played it before. So the playtest will get bigger in audience over time. Any other questions? Okay, that was slightly more than 1.5 hours, so nice. Glad so many guys joined. I hope this was instructive. It was definitely nice to meet some of you, so that was really cool. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to what you say once you get it in your hands.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you about.
And thank you,
Then-
Julian and Andre.
Bye.
Thank you,
bye.
Polen, for setting it up. Okay, guys, then
Yeah, cheers.
bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Have a nice weekend.